Star, they talk about how Arab states and France ganged up against Raila Odinga. This is very much like the headlines yesterday on Monday, where many headlines were focusing on who is to blame for Raila Odinga's loss. Many of the other papers appear to have moved on, especially on the Standard. It talks about taming Raila back home, and on the People Daily how many allies now want Raila Odinga to become Prime Minister. But let's start from that blame angle. On the Star, they talk about how Arab states and France ganged up against Raila Odinga. Yesterday, we saw the dailies blaming President William Ruto for what they called missteps, diplomatic mishaps that may have led to that loss. Some even blamed former President Uhuru Kenyatta, accusing him of even showing up at night in Addis Ababa. Bwana Manduku, when it comes to blame games, because definitely that is part of a healing process, where do you think the blame lies?
Thank you, Fred. I think looking at the election results and looking at the previous performance of Kenyan diplomats and Kenyan sponsored candidates in other elections, it is obviously clear that the main problem with the African Union Commission elections is the way the elections are structured. We can blame each other from today until tomorrow. But the fact that we have a divide of the Anglophone versus Francophone, the fact that we have a definition on Arab states and non-Arab states, the fact that members can belong to the East African community and at the same time belong to the SADC, which are economic blocs. Egypt can belong to COMESA and belong to North Africa. It is those structural problems that are inherent, and it is very difficult for a Kenyan or an East African who is not French-speaking and not Arab to ever win this election. Former Minister Mukisa Kitui put it very well. The problem with the African Union is structural complexities in the system. Of course, we'll blame everyone else, but I can tell you that our President, William Ruto, really went out of his way to ensure that he personally campaigned for our candidate, Raila Odinga. I can assure you that Prime Cabinet Secretary Moses Mudavadi was all over trying to convince African heads of states that we had a good candidate. And I can tell you, even if Raila Odinga is our party leader, he was the best candidate for this seat. Okay. But it is just the nature of life. Okay. It is like when you run, for example, you run in Kisumu town and you have an ODM ticket, and another guy runs in the same constituency with a UDA ticket. You know, the election is already decided. Same thing with this election. And allow me to correct you there. You referred to the Prime Cabinet Secretary as Moses. Sorry. I think Moses was the father. The father, yes, sorry. Yes, this is Musalia, Wycliffe Musalia. Wycliffe Mudavadi, yes. Thank you for that. And now, yes, and you mentioned correctly that there's a chronology of our failures on international scene when we try to go for these big seats. Definitely we should have learned something by now, Bwana Mutambu, when it comes to dealing